Hi everyone. This is the second week of my newsletter preview. Last week we looked at The Magician, and I hope that everybody enjoyed that newsletter. There were some pretty cool videos on there. If you watched the one with the guy who did the blind driving, that was crazy. I still haven't figured out how that works. If any of you have any ideas, send them my way. So here we are in Rome. It is so hot this week. Summer has arrived. It's 85 degrees. Oh my gosh, and it's supposed to be 95 Fahrenheit, of course, because I still think in Fahrenheit, even though I live in Europe. So, welcome to summer here in Rome. This coming week in the newsletter, we're going to look at the next card in the Major Arcana, and that's the High Priestess. So, to give you an idea of what that card looks like if you are not familiar, here we have a priestess, looking kind of like a princess, but she's sitting on her throne in between two columns with B and J. There's a story behind that. Lots of symbolism here in this card. So what are we looking at here with the High Priestess? In the newsletter, we're going to focus mainly on intuition. So when you find the High Priestess, we talked about the Magician last week and looking at action in the world, taking those talents and gifts that you have inside of you and putting them out into the world. The High Priestess is kind of the complement, the counterpart to the Magician, in the sense that she's looking at her inner knowing. So kind of as an umbrella concept, your first keyword for this card is intuition, but also a deep knowing that doesn't come from a rational or a logical point of view, which is not really favored in Western society. So in the newsletter, we're going to look a lot at what intuition means, what it actually is, what's the difference between this idea of being psychic and being intuitive. And I contend, as a lot of other people do as well, that intuition is something we all possess. When people say to me after reading, wow, you really have a gift, I say it's not really a gift in so much as it's the fact that I've studied the tarot for quite a while, and so it's something that you can develop. And so in the newsletter, I'm going to examine this idea of everyone has intuitive gifts in a sense, but like anything, like a muscle, when you work out, you have to build it and develop it. Something interesting that happened this week in a reading that I was doing for a client, a simple 3-card reading, that's never happened to me before and is a sign, I think, of how intuition grows the more that you use it. I was shuffling the cards and just concentrating on the question, as I always do, and out of nowhere, an image of a certain card popped into my head that had nothing to do with anything. It just certainly just came out of nowhere. And I thought to myself as I was shuffling, wouldn't that be interesting if that card came up in the first position? And sure enough, there it was. When I flipped the cards over after having shuffled and cut the cards, the card that I had seen kind of in a flash came up in the first position, and I just had to smile because, again, it's this sense of being able to, without trying to sound too esoteric or out there, a sense of knowing things without being able to quite explain them. So it deals with synchronicity, any kind of event where you feel like you had a sense of something, you saw something, you knew something, and you can't quite arrive at a logical process to explain how. We need this in our life. We need to develop this sense. If you completely, give yourself over to this idea that everything has to be explained, everything has a rational explanation, everything can be explained away by science, scientific process, reason. Okay, that has its place, certainly. But there's also a place for developing an unconscious kind of a knowing, going inside, meditating, just trusting in that inner knowing. And it has a place in day-to-day life. In fact, in the newsletter, we're going to look at practical ways that you can bring intuitive knowing into your everyday life, so that it comes out of this realm of course, the High Priestess as a card does represent mystery. It does represent the unknown. It does represent going into the depths of the psyche and exploring that. But on the other hand, there's a practical side to that. And so we're going to try to bring this, preserve the mystery of the High Priestess while also bringing it more down to earth. And how can we use this mysterious gift of intuition that we're all given? How can we develop it? And how can we use it in our everyday life? How can we take it out of the realm of being mysterious and psychic and bring it down to earth in a way that we can use in our everyday life to live a life that's more balanced? And how can we learn to trust, I think, is an important factor as well. Because, again, being that our Western society focuses so much on we have to have proof. We have to be able to explain it. It has to be proven by science, or else we don't trust it, or else it's suspect, or else it's just new age or whatever. Okay, I see that point of view. By the same token, we can't let this side of ourselves stagnate. We can't repress it or ignore it, because then we have an imbalance. And then we find ourselves trying to use rational thinking or logical thinking in areas that simply won't tolerate that. And so how do we find that balance? How do we bring that gift outside of ourselves without, how can we find a balance between the rational side and the inner side, the knowing side, the part of us that sends us messages and we don't often trust, because we're not trained in our society to do that. We're not necessarily trained to develop and trust in that side. And so how can we, in next week's newsletter challenge, how can we actually take a step to put our intuitive gifts to work in our daily lives? There's no cost to it. It's just an experiment, experiments that you can try and to see how you can actually get proof of intuitive, of knowing. So it will be interesting, especially for those of you who are very linear thinkers, to not discount this kind of mysterious, the feminine energy, so to speak, side of the sixth sense and of knowing. And so I hope that you will, if you're not already signed up for the newsletter, I hope that you will. It's going to be a lot of fun, because we're going to bring this intuitive knowing down to earth. So sign up if you're not already signed up. If you are, it comes out on Monday as always, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and a great week coming up. So we will look at the High Priestess on Monday. See you guys soon. Bye.